Leo, in the last segment, Gary asked you how long you thought Act One would last, and we know that the playbook, the Marxist playbook that you're laying out, the communists in their playbook, you talked about the Weather Underground and what they did all the way back in 1974, and they laid out where they were going. This is basically a newer version, but the same thing. In your article, you quoted from a communist leader, Vladimir Lenin, that I thought was interesting. Lenin said this, quote, "There are decades when nothing happens. And then there are weeks when decades happen," end quote. That is a pretty significant thing. It's almost like what we're seeing now. Quiet for a long time, and then all of a sudden, a lot is happening. History is falling by the day as monuments are taken down across the country. Anarchists in Seattle, an example, are doing what they can to push the government and others and the people. To some point, there's going to be pushback, and that's kind of like what you're talking about. We don't know some of those things. So here's the question as you begin this segment. When we talk about Act Two, what are the options in how this defiance that they're pushing, this tension here in Act One, what determines perhaps of whether or not Act Two comes forward as the Marxist playbook participants have laid out?
I think the defining factor, Sam, is whether what we've seen in Act One spreads. I almost could divide it into Act One, Part A, and Act One, Part B, with Part A being what we've already seen, the uprisings and upheaval and racial tensions flaring and looting and rioting in the cities, in the urban core areas. And if we see that spread to the suburbs, that would be what I call Act One, Part B. And if we see Act One, Part B start to play out, Katie, bar the door, because that will be a sign that we are heading for Act Two. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it is a sign that we have just upped the chances from 50-50, which is what I put it at right now, a 50-50 chance of us going to Act Two. If you see what we've seen in the city spread to the suburbs, and we see Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesting in the suburbs, smashing windows in the suburbs, attacking, God forbid, residential areas in the suburbs, either if they do that, I would think it would be by stealth at night, targeting homes with American flags and things like that. If we see that, then hold on to your horses, because we're more than likely, I would up the odds to about 80-20 that we're heading for Act Two.
Okay, before
Act Two, go ahead.
Gary's got a question for you. I just want to insert this just very quickly. Not a big answer, but when you make that projection, is that just based on what you feel, or does that tie in to the history that you've done in other Marxist revolutions that you cited with Mao or in Russia and a couple of things? I mean, is it based on those?
Look at the Russian Revolution.
Okay.
Yes, it started in the city centers, and it eventually it fanned out from there, eventually all the way out to the countryside.